Good morning and welcome back everyone to the second day of the Indonesia Community Education Festival 2026. My name is Rafsi. Alongside Adan, I am the project co-director of this event. And it is a very wonderful opportunity to see every one of you back with us this morning. Some of you joined us yesterday, and we're also very glad to welcome those new faces who are just here for this day, starting today. And hopefully, you can stay with us until the end of the day. It will be an hours long exercise of basically learning as well as implementing those learnings, co-ideating with others. And we feel and we are truly glad to see that your presence here on these 2 days speak volumes about your commitment to the future of education, be it in Indonesia and beyond. And as we move on to the first session of today, we will be exploring a topic that is to many people very personal and actually very it is a discussion about how social mobility can drive equal access to education and also how education in return can feed into a better social mobility. We are truly honored to be joined by two incredible speakers with distinct yet deeply complementary perspectives. We have Professor Takehiko Kariya, a specially appointed professor at Sophia University and emeritus fellow at the University of Oxford, and Neas Wanimbo, founder of Yayasan Hano Wene Indonesia. And together, they will bring us insights that bridge the global and the local, the academic and the lived experiences of peoples. And as we dive into this panel, I encourage everyone to stay curious, take notes, and reflect on how these ideas around social mobility can be actively applied within your own communities and learning environments. Because later on, we will be using these insights, these reflections for the workshop session that will be hosted, co-convened together with Timur Network Foundation. And don't go anywhere because later on we will directly proceed to this discussion a few minutes, 10 to 15 after the panel session itself. And without further ado, I would like to welcome a moderator for today, which is going to bring us, who is going to bring us alongside this discussion and also give you perspectives, moderate this discussion, these conversations, so that we can get the most out of this opportunity. I am glad to have Fayana, who is a very amazing young person from Indonesia, who will be moderating this session. A very outstanding student nonetheless. And I would like to give this opportunity to you. Please, Fayana, you have the stage.
Okay, thank you so much, Kak Rafsi. Selamat pagi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, and welcome to panel 3 of this event, ICEF 2026, with the theme of, you guys can see the screen, right? Leveling the playing field, how social mobility can drive equal access. So my name is Fayana, and I will be your moderator for today's session. But before we begin, I want to ask one question. How do you feel, guys, this morning? I want you to guys type in the chat box or give a reaction. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, good. Okay, excited? Do you excited for today's session? So excited for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving your hearts, okay? And I want to say thank you to all of us, speakers and then committees and each of you guys that watching in today's session. Thank you so much for coming. And actually, our panel with the theme of leveling the playing field, how social mobility can drive equal access, explore a very fundamental challenge in education, guys. So we have to ensuring that every learner has the opportunity to succeed regardless of their socioeconomic background. And actually, in the session, we will look at social mobility from two complementary perspectives. First, we will discuss the structural and social factors that influence a student's ability to access opportunities. And then after that, we will explore how communities themselves can become powerful engines of mobility to creating support system that enable collective progress, actually, rather than individual success alone. Okay, so together, this perspective will help us to think beyond access to education and towards access to opportunity. And we will have now allow me to introduce our two extraordinary guests or our speaker. And our first speaker is Professor Takehiko Kariya, a specially appointed professor of Sofia University and emeritus fellow at the University of Oxford. And throughout his career, He has dedicated himself to sociology of education, social stratification, and the social change of post-war Japan. And he is also a recipient of Japan's Medal of Honor with Purple Ribbon, one of the country's highest academic honor. Please welcome Professor Kariya. I hope you're doing well this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for kind
thank you so much.
introduction. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Kariya. And next, we have our second speaker. And our second speaker did not just study today's topic, but actually he lived with this topic. His name is Kak Neas Wanimbo. He was born and raised in the highlands of Papua, and is the founder of Yayasan Hano Wene Indonesia, a grassroots foundation bringing literacy and learning to children in remote and indigenous areas of Papua. And his motto is very simple but powerful. So hear me out. Hano Wene in the Hubla language means good news. And that is what he brings to this community every day. So please welcome Kak Neas Wanimbo. Thank you so much. So wonderful to have you
Hello.
here. Hello,
Thank you,
Kak
Panaya.
Neas.
Thank you. So excited for today.
Okay, so excited to have you here. Okay, so guys, our next session, ladies and gentlemen, we will have keynote speaker first, and then our first speaker, Professor Kariya, will give his perspective, and we're very much looking forward, Professor, to hearing your perspective on the principle of mobility in education. So, Professor Kariya, the floor is all yours.
Yeah. Thank you very much for kind introduction and very kind, to invite me to this very interesting, I think, conference. So that I will give you my talk, by using PowerPoint. So let me share the screen. Can you see the screen? Is that okay?
Yes, it's clear,
Yes, sir.
Professor.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my title of today's presentation is Incentive Divide in Meritocracy, Inequality in Japan's Education. And then as a sociologist, I have studied inequality in Japan's education very long time. And then my findings show to some extent not so positive or optimistic way of seeing the society, but another bit more negative or pessimistic views, despite the reforms are intended very, I think, intended to be very, goodwill, based on very goodwill. So that's today's discussion and my presentation shows why and how very well-intended education reforms failed in decreasing inequality in education. Okay, and then I summarized at the beginning what I'm talking about today. As I mentioned, education reforms aimed now at nurturing individuality but it created unintended consequences. The education system in Japan underwent a shift from examination-driven curriculum to one designed to foster student individuality and creativity. Like in other Asian countries, when Japan's education was characterized as very strong exam-driven curriculum. That many young people wanted to pass the entrance examination. So that's the all education followed that kind of a principle for students to pass the entrance exam. So that exam-driven curriculum or education was the target by the government, to change it to foster students' individuality and creativity. So then the government reduced the pressure on students by shortening the school days and then reducing the amount of curriculum content. This approach was dubbed room to grow, so that for students to have more room to grow. That is the kind of the slogan when the government started this sort of approach about more than 20 years ago. And then the nature of that reform was supported by idea of a learner-centered approach that was introduced to achieve these goals. Nevertheless, the relaxed and less demanding nature of education approach has advertently resulted in an increase in education inequality, characterized by differences in motivation to learn among students from different social classes. So that is ironical results are produced by goodwill or good intended reforms. That's kind of irony. And then I introduced my own concept, incentive divide, like this one. The education reforms which have created more room to grow have relaxed a tight school curriculum, which of course previously driven by examinations. And originally it intended to nurture individuality and creativity among students. But the incentives for hard work at school were found to be more different across social classes. Under the less demanding education system, which are caused by reforms, students from the upper and middle classes worked as hard as in previous years, but those from the lower classes worked less hard to achieve success at school. So the incentives to work hard in school, I think, are divided by social class background. So I call this phenomena the incentive divide. And then, of course, I argue that which is caused by relaxed education reforms intended to foster students' individuality and creativity. Let me explain the background of that sort of reforms, because this may be similar to other countries which started modernization later than Western advanced countries. Well, in the policy discourse published in 1980s, Japanese government looked at Japan's education's problem caused by its catch-up modernization. And then the document said, in the past, there has been periods that strongly demanded countries to westernize, modernize, industrialize, and pursue economic growth. Then the content of the need of the times were clear, and there existed models we needed to aim toward. Since the
I'm sorry. Okay.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's
and
already clear.
Since the Meiji period, which was the starting point of Japan's modernization about 150 years ago, such needs have denied or even ignored our own traditions, placed our nation as backward and low level, and constituted the way to pursue alien aims. And then we need to recognize that the negative side effects of Japan's modern industrial civilization is catch-up model of modernization. And then that negative side influenced on our culture and education. And then that's why what we need. However, it is undeniable that Japan's traditional education has mostly rested on the tendency of cramming knowledge by rote memorization, that is exam-driving education's characteristic. And the society of the future will require us not merely to acquire knowledge and information, but to further develop the ability to express, create, think with our heads, and to make an appropriate use of that knowledge and information. Creativity is closely connected to individuality, and only when individuality is fostered can creativity be nourished. That's a kind of the ideas, I think, about 45 years ago, the government thought that, we finished catching up. That's why we needed different types of education. So that education reform started based on that kind of ideas. So the goals of reforms guided by this cognition favored individualism. the following arguments have been posited in favor of individualism, individuality, and individualization. The full development of education centered on individually focused education, which was shared in the criticism against knowledge cramming, rigidity uniform, and admissions testing-based education. So then certain reform referred to as relaxed education, or in Japanese, yutori kyoiku. And then the idea of that reforms also, I think, are centered on learner-centered idealism. To this end, each student had to take more responsibility for their own learning. The system had to be designed to encourage this behavior, which was known as learner-centered education. Teachers were expected to shift from learning to supporting, or teaching to supporting. And then the newly revised national curriculum of 1998 reduced the time spent in school and the number of subjects taught, and based on the assumption that children would take responsibility for their own learning. The over-idealization of independent free learning and thinking child led reform of the late 1990s and early 2000s, and even today. And this is some of my empirical studies, showing results of the effects of such reforms. And then here's the 3 years comparable data of high school students. And then these are all social class background, lower, middle, and ours. And then this table shows, I think, how many minutes students study outside of school, across population, across the social class. And then in 1979, students study more, and then longer. And then 1997, when after the reform started, the time spent, I think, for studying outside school reduced very much, because of course it was a goal. Relaxed education should give students more room to grow, and then so reducing the pressure on examination. Okay, and then but if you look at the social class background differences, I think this is not so clear, but statistically it shows that in 1997, I think difference is stronger, bigger. And then again, 2009, similar trends are found. And then this is, I didn't go details about this regression analysis, but look at here, mother education. If mothers have BA degree, in 1979, it has no influence on learning time. But 97 and 2009, if mothers had BAs, then students study longer than other students. So that means some kind of effects appeared after the reform started sometime in 1990s. So that it's one of the evidence that I argue that shows very good will-based reforms are not necessarily producing that intended result. However, it could produce an intended result as expanding or increasing inequality in education. In this case, how long students study outside of school. That is kind of a proxy to measure students' motivation. To work hard in school. For their success in society. Of course, it should be related with social mobility. So that's the following the implementation of the relaxed education reform. The influence of mother education on her children's study hours become apparent. This is an example of an incentive divide. And present orientation, sorry, I didn't have time to show this result, but my research, I think I showed this kind of phenomena. Present orientation defined as students, rather than thinking about the future, I would like to enjoy life now, so that they don't stop working hard in school, but and then stop thinking of the future. but they just wanted to enjoy their life now. And that kind of a present orientation was found to boost the self-confidence of students whose parents did not have a bachelor's degree in 1997. But the same thing didn't happen in 97 as 1979. So this is another example of the incentive divide. And then parental education is, of course, a proxy of cultural capital of family in which students grow up. So that cultural capital within families exert an invisible yet significant influence on intergenerational transmission of socioeconomic advantages. So the education reforms in the post-catch-up modernization era, which intended to nurture or foster students' creativity or individuality, but it resulted in a sort of, I think, incentive divide, and then implicitly enhanced the influence of cultural capital of a family. And that's why it has widened inequality. So these are my works. If you are interested in, please ask me, then I will send a list to you later. Thank you very much. This is my talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Kariya. Please give a round of applause to Professor Kariya, everyone. So many new insights that we learned, especially for myself, Professor. You have highlighted the importance of looking beyond policy intentions and examining how education systems it will shape opportunity differently across social groups. And as we reflect on the theme of social mobility, Professor Nakia already said that reminds us that equal access is not merely about providing the same opportunities, but actually about creating conditions that allow everyone to benefit from them also. And maybe this discussion inspires us, everyone, to continue building more inclusive and equitable societies. Thank you so much, Professor Kariya, for your talks. And then after this, we will move to question and answer. But before we move to the question and answer and talk show, we have another keynote speaker. Okay, so we're going to move to the next session of Kak Neas' keynote presentation. So without further ado, Kak Neas, please go ahead. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Payana, for the space. And also thank you, Professor, for your speech. It was so inspiring, and I got some insight as a practices of the social mobility from Papua. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neas Wanimbo. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Here we go. I come from Highland, Papua, and I'm one of the initiator of the Hano Wene Indonesia, a community-based education initiative that we working with the children and local communities in the remote area of Papua. So today I want to share not only about the educations, but also about the hope, dignity, and collective social mobility through education in Papua. Because in Papua, education is not only about getting good grade or finishing schools, but education often difference between isolations and opportunity, between hopeless and possibility. So next slide. Next, okay. So I have been experiencing how education it was during my elementary school in Papua. I have one teacher he taught us 6 class a day, and we don't have like resources. So I was born and raised in Highland, Papua. Now is Papua Pegunungan province. And growing up, I saw many realities that shaped the way I understand education today. I saw education without teachers, children, we working like 2-3 hours just only getting to the schools, and also limited books to read, and we don't have facilities like libraries and books. So we learn by by the environment that we growing up, and also many younger people in Papua lose their confidence because of there is resources, the education resources. At the same time, I also saw that something powerful, community that's never stop caring about their children. And that experience changed me deeply. And I realized that something important. Children in Papua are not lacking of intelligence, but they are lacking of access and opportunity. So since 2019, we have been working together with the community and through trust education and community empowerment in the remote and rural area of Papua. And then next slide. In Indonesia, not all the children have the same starting point. Some children are growing up with a good internet and also good school and also good support system and wide exposure of opportunity. And many children in Indonesia, especially in Papua, we growing up in a limited access to the teachers and also difficult transportations or infrastructure and also limited access to educational resources. And sometimes the hardest barriers is not only infrastructure, it is the feelings that their dreams are not too far away. So this is why equality alone is not enough. We need equitable support because different communities face different realities in Papua and Indonesia. Next. For me, education is bigger than just a classroom, just the formal learning, also following the structure. But community education means learning that's growing from the people, by the people, and for the people. Learning can be happen in the community center, in the community library, in discussions, in open space, and through storytelling, and also through relationship. Sometimes the village itself become the classrooms. In Hano Wene, we create informal learning space where children feel safe and heard and also encouraged. Because many children do not only need education, they also need belonging, encouragement, and also hope. So that's we Hano Wene is creating for the children in the remote area of Papua by community educations. And next slide. So just Payana mentioned it, the meaning of the Hano Wene. Hano Wene means Hano is good, Wene is news. So our main is to separate the good news in the remote and rural areas of Papua by the activities that we have been developing. So the name of Hano Wene comes from Papuan's local language. So it's a deep meaning for the deep meaning for the people here, and also why it's use local language because it can create belongingness to the community itself, so they can feel the programs that we can also it's from them and from themselves. So our approach is very simple. We're starting by listening. And we build trust with the community first before introducing our program. So because community are not the object of the charity, they are partners in transformations. At Hano Wene, we believe that real learnings grow when communities feel ownership of the process. And also when young people trust it, they can become a future leader of their own communities. Okay, next slide. Here, one important thing that I want to share today is in Papua, social mobility is often collective. So no one rises alone. When one child gets educations, often an entire family or village contributes, like parents sacrifice, neighbor support, communities encouragement. And when that child succeeds, the whole community will feel so proud of how the achievement that the children have. So this is different from the idea of success. It's not only personal achievement, For many indigenous communities, success is relational, so it is connected to the responsibility and giving back to the community. Social mobility is not only about moving upward individually, it is about bringing the community forward together. And next slide. At the same time, Papua faced another challenge that is brain to drain. What this means? Many talented young people left their hometowns to pursue educations, but most of them they didn't come back, and some of them they returned back. As a result, we lost community lost their future leaders. Local capacity become weaker, and development become difficult to sustain. This is the why we need difficult understanding of success. Success, hold on, means disconnecting from our roots. The goal of our education is not should only be escaping poverty, it should also be transforming the places we came from. We need educational pathways that encourage young people to return, contribute, and lead change in their own community. And next slide. Another important issue is that formal education often ignores indigenous knowledge. So because we also come from the indigenous communities, I feel that indigenous knowledge also is important to know to be work together with the national curriculum, because national curriculum sometimes not implement well in the schools in the rural area of Papua. So many local cultures, language, traditional way of learning are treated so that's important nowadays. So, but indigenous communities hold valuable knowledge like about nature, about resilience, about cooperation, about humanity. So community education helps preserve these values. It helps children feel proud of who they are and reminds us that intelligence is not academic. Indigenous knowledge is also not backward, but it is a wisdom that we have to know, maintain, and it is also our identity. So without no indigenous knowledge, we will lose who we are. When we know when it's come to indigenous and it's showing off who really I am. So like I'm an indigenous, I'm from Papua, that's the value that I have. So people will know he's from Papua, something like that, simple as. Next slide. What can Indonesia can learn? I believe that Indonesia can learn a lot from the community-led educations. Education reform cannot happen only through top-down policies. We can see now, we can experience it. All the policies is like top-down, so it's not really reach the grassroots educations. So it must grow from the communities. We need communities, space, library. Also, we need the self-learning space. We need local mentors and also youth leaders and collaborative with the across sectors. And sometimes small community space can create a big transformations, especially from children who feel unseen by the large system. Community education can become a bridge between the marginalized children and also future opportunity. Next. I think this is my last slide. So before I close, I want to leave one important message that I want to give all to you. Children in Papua are not lacking of potential. They are lacking of access, opportunities, network, and also capable support. And this is why community education is matters, because it's creates space where children can begin to imagine a different future, a future where they can not forgotten, a future where they can grow while staying connected with their identity and community. I truly believe that when one child rise, a full community rise with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kaneas, for your wonderful presentation. Please give a round of applause to Kaneas. Actually, your experience in community really inspires us, especially for me, because actually I also have community that focus on literacy education named Self Grow Indonesia. So I really inspired by you, Kaneas. And I got new insight about when one child rises, a whole community rises with them also. And you've mentioned before that education should not disconnect us from our roots. So actually, I think this lines is going to stay with everyone here today. So thank you so much, Kaneas, for your wonderful presentation. And after this, we will move on to our next session, which talk show. So we will have like 25 minutes of talk show. And I have questions for both of Professor Kariya and Kaneas. And then after that, after the talk show session, we will have question and answer session with the audience. So if you guys have any questions, please prepare it right now. And after that, we will have like question and answer session. Okay, so for the first question, actually, I want to ask to Professor Kariya. Is Professor Kariya still here? Okay,
Yes,
yes.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Professor Kariya. So I want to ask you by starting to ask a fundamental question, actually. I want to ask, is there a version of schooling that genuinely levels the playing field, Professor, that gives every student, regardless of socioeconomic background, a real chance? Or does the advantage always find a way to reassert itself? Please, Professor Kariya.
I think if I answer to your question, I think historically, of course, that in the early period of modernization, I think elementary school I played great role to leveling, I think, inequality across social background and then regional differences. And then, but if I link to my talk to Wanimbo's, community-based education in Papua. I think differently, I think from Papua, what's going on in Papua, Japan's modernization processes encouraged people leave their hometowns if they are good in school. And then, of course, the elementary school is a good place for everyone to get knowledge. But if you are very good, you wanted to go to middle school, and then, of course, that after middle school, you wanted to go to higher education. And then, of course, that those kind of successful students often moved from home countries to uh, urban cities like Tokyo. So that I think ironically, great opportunities equally given to students in elementary schools. I think contradict. I think the way of the growing of community. So that's something I think ironically things happens. And after the war, of course, our Japanese education system again that try to create more equal opportunities, and then middle school become part of compulsory education. So that 9 years compulsory education, I think, of course, that gave more opportunities for more people. But high school level, that's a problem. High school, as to enter high school, you have to take examination, entrance examination, and then depending on your result or test scores, you are stratified into different ranked high schools. And then high schools become the sort of sorting machines. I mean, of course, it's also meritocratic, but also related with your social background. So that, I mean, to answer your question, of course, that first, I think elementary school played a great role. But ironically, it, I think, picked up very able students who are succeeded in elementary schools, I mean, to go on to upper level and then leave the country. So that's something I think happened. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Kariya. That's a very interesting answer. So I want to move to Kaneas for this question, actually. From your experience in Papua, does the community model offer a different kind of answer to that question? Please, Kaneas. you still mute your mic?
All right.
Okay.
The question is, can you repeat the question? Sorry,
Oh, okay.
didn't
So,
get the
is
point.
there a version of schooling that genuinely levels the playing field, that gives every student, regardless of socioeconomic background, a real chance? Or does the advantage always find a way to reassert itself from your community model's experience?
So, in our community model experience that now we are working is collaborating with the different sector. So, because we also have weaknesses. In Papua is a lot of challenges to faces like political issues, and also we have for lack of resources from our organization also. So we collaborated with the different sector like churches and also youth, how our program is make possible to access to everyone, that for the children and also for the in the villages. So we here is like for the our program make sure that if everyone can access, and also our program can reach in the grassroots level. So he is collaborating with the different sector. I think that is the what do you mean, or I'm like a bit like
Yes. Okay. So from community experience, so you have to collaborate between sectors to actually increase the productivity of education to children itself. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I want to move again to Professor Kariya. So, Professor Kariya, in your presentation slides, you have written about the incentive divide, like the condition where students who need education the most as a path to mobility are also the least positioned to use it effectively, actually. So, given that kind of reality, what is the most realistic path upward for a child for a marginalized background, in your opinion, Professor Kariya?
Oh, it's a very difficult question. I mean, to answer you realistically, but of course that one thing that recently proceeded in Japan was the individualizations. So that's the previous years, of course, that public spaces I think are regarded very important for everyone. But I think once individualization started, I think I mean how hard you work in school, I think it's your own responsibility. That's kind of ideology. Why do you spread out? And then, and then, as you may know that, shadow education, private tutoring outside school, that also developed hugely in Japan. And then rich parents, I think, spend a lot of money, to their kids, to go to good, out of school, supplementary schools, after schools. So that means more individualization has gone too, and then the public intervention getting weaker. Of course, that very marginalized people like disabled people or uh, or non-Japanese. Native language is not Japanese. Those are different kind of categories. That still the government, I think, tried to, give more opportunities. But overall, the majority of Japanese people, uh, it was not easy for the government to cut into that kind of the problem by intervening. There are more equality, I think, are taking place. So that's something I think of current situations. Although, uh, well, probably the government needed more, I think, spend money, but it may not go in. It was not used for that sake.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer, Professor Kariya. After this, you will have like question and answer session with the audience. So the audience, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have any question, please type it on the comment section below. Or if you guys want to raise hand and question it directly, ask it directly to the speakers, you may also after this have that kind of opportunity. Thank you so much, Professor Kariya. And I want to ask next question to Neas. Neas, in your presentation before, you had a slide titled "Succeed should not mean leaving home." And actually, that struck me also. And how do we ensure that social mobility does not become brain drain, where the most talented youth from Eastern Indonesia leave and never coming back? What do you think about that, Neas?
Okay. Based on my experience that I've been seen from the youth Eastern from Papua, and they've been study abroad and also out of Papua like Java, and most of them some of them they studied in the major that's also there is no job in Papua, so they prefer to stay, and they stay abroad because the subject that they take is there is no in Papua to implement the knowledge. So that's why they stay. That is the reason that they talk to me sometimes. And also some of them they return. They not come back because they find good life, and also they find good opportunity career in abroad. And that's why how we lack of our leaders, and also the situation in Papua. We need a figure, we need a leaders to bring change in the communities. But then those students they people stay abroad and they don't want to come back. And I have also have opportunity, the same opportunity. I've been working in international international NGOs, and also I've been also joining with the sustainable development goals, have opportunity to work and abroad. But then I feel that no, I have to stay, I have to go back. And if I'm the one to bring change in my community, because a lot of my friends and also in my age, they didn't get opportunity like me. They stay, they didn't get access to educations. I feel that I'm very lucky because I got a scholarship to finish my study from the elementary school until university, and I also have opportunity to explore and also scholarship exchange to go abroad. And I have experiencing meeting with new people, and also learning new culture. And I think that I have to go back to Papua to implement in my community. So that's how I came back. And I think it's also depend on the people, on their call it like your calling. And if you feel like you want to what is your calling, and you feel strong about what you want to do in your life, and that's how moving you forward. And so I feel that everywhere you go, there will be you will find a problem, and even here in Papua or you go abroad, but how do you solve it, and how you. But I feel that come back to Papua is something that precious, something that important for me, and to serve my people and growing up and to see and to solve the problem here. And it's a not big movement, but it's just like small movement, small activities that we are doing. But somehow I feel proud, and I feel something that inside me that no, I can get from somewhere.
Okay, thank you so much, Kanaya. So actually, the line is carrying your roots with you and coming back with the capacity to change your own community, right? So actually, as individual, we have to build reasons to return, not just reasons to leave, actually, guys. So if you guys have your own city, you have to make sure that you also can build your own community in your own city. And actually, I want to include and involve Professor Kariya in these questions regarding to that kind of route mobility. Professor, from your sociological lens, is there any research that supports this idea of rooted mobility that does not have to mean severing your roots? Do you have any ideas with that question?
Could you repeat the question again, because it was not clear, my hearing. Okay, could you repeat it again?
Yes. Okay, so from a sociological lens, is there research that supports this idea of rooted mobility that does not have to mean suffering your roots?
Oh, suffering your roots means that anything like, that hometown identities or
Yes,
national
exactly.
identity and so on. I think the belief of the homogeneity of the society as Japanese, I think that's probably this visible in Japan. However, I think, of course, regional differences, of course, is one key. But as I mentioned earlier, I think if you are successful enough in school, you wanted to move from hometown to big city for your social, better social economic life. So that means, I think that sort of the modernization um, has created further, I think, homogeneity of the Japanese society. And then seemingly, it, I think, uh, uh, make the problem of the self-identity or some kind of self-esteem of being belong to somewhere or any groups of people. I think that's sort of, I think, a feeling is getting weaker. So that's, I think, that's a process of Japan's way of modernization, which I think created a myth of homogeneous society. But it is very different from Indonesian situation or Papua New Guinea situation, because those kind of, I think, are racial, ethnic, and then culture, and then differences. Of course, there existed huge difference, but I think that sort of, I think, senses should be, I think, had to be, I think, uh, cleared by the government policy to give a sense of Japaneseness in a homogeneous society. Is that answer to your question?
Yes. Okay, that's answering my question. Thank you so much, Professor Kariya. So actually, this is the last question for this talk show session, because after this we will move to the question and answer session. So I want to ask to two speakers for today's session, what is the biggest misconception that people in major cities such as Jakarta, Tokyo, or Oxford have about the potential of students in remote parts of a country? Maybe Professor Kariya wants to go first to giving the perspective from Tokyo.
What do you mean by misconception?
Like maybe some of people think that they have potential if they go to big city to one of country itself.
Of course, that more employment opportunities. That kind of, culturally, economically richer environments are prepared in big cities like in Tokyo. So that, but I think now the internet, I think, changed a lot. I think if you live in remote areas, but you know that what's going on in Japan or what's going on in Tokyo. But I think still, I think, uh, in Tokyo, probably it provides more, I think, opportunity for employment. So the employment is a big issue. And then, so that means and then another issue is, unlike in Indonesia, our demography, I think, reducing the population, particularly young people. That is another factor that nowadays, younger people wanted to stay home. And then parents want their children to stay home because they don't have enough number of people in the local communities to maintain their functions. So that means, a bit different from the previous years. But I think in the past, until 1980s, very good people in school, are very successful people who wanted to move to big cities because of more employment opportunities and higher wages and so on.
Okay, thank you so much for your perspective, Professor Kariya. We go to Kaneas. Do you have any perspective with the question?
I've been like we studied in Jakarta for like uh, for 4 years, and as a from indigenous community, I think people in Jakarta, in the big city nowadays, they feel like want to move, having a peace life and go to the countryside and something activities that, because in Jakarta in a big city have a lot of activities, and when it's come to see the people from the indigenous, on they have own perspective. Oh, he's from like I'm from Papua, and like they feel like, oh, he's from Papua, and maybe he's in his area there is no electricity, they're still indigenous and something like that. But then like people are, I was like saying people by the
Hello, Kaneas? Okay, maybe Kaneas have technical issue. Okay, yes,
hello.
you already, yes,
Yes.
okay. Loud and clear.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
continue.
So people in a big city to see that they have their own glasses to see the indigenous people, to see the people from the villages, from the, but actually the way they see is different, and the person is caring. Maybe the person is have motivation. He moved to the city. He want to gain a good education. He want to develop for better life. But then people in the city to see him different way. So that's how the person from the villages feel not confident and not connected with the. But it's also come from in my experience. I open myself to connect with the people, and also to share, to know, to join the organizations. That's open my view to see different worlds, different community, and different perspective from the big cities, because I come from the small city in the village, and when I come to the Jakarta, I feel I new environment and new language and new food. Everything is new, so it's depend how as a person to to open yourself and to socialize with the people around you, and it will help me a lot of on during that way. And after that, I learned a lot from the people, and I came back and also, and now I'm working in my communities. I hope that it answers your questions,
Okay.
but
Yes, okay, clear. Thank you so much, Kaneas. So actually, guys, opportunity will always open to all of us in education, yeah? Okay, so we're going to move to our next session, which question and answer. So this in here we already have two that have question. So first, Bu Jani Purnawanti, please mention your name, where you're from, and the question, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kak Faya, for giving me the first chance to deliver my question. So actually, my name is Yani Purnawanti. I am dosen dan peneliti di Fakultas Hukum UNAIR. So I'm going to use bahasa campur-campur, and please translate it to Professor Kariya if it is necessary, Kak Faya ya. My question is to Kak Neas. Kak, kalau yang saya lihat problem di Papua itu adalah tentang sumber daya manusia secara keseluruhan. Dan saya pikir Kak Neas itu adalah salah satu komponen masyarakat yang paling penting, karena Kak Neas berperan dalam sebagai NGO untuk membantu pemerintah. Yang saya lihat kalau tadi Kak Neas mengeluhkan bahwa orang pintarnya Papua keluar ke Papua untuk belajar tapi nggak pernah kembali, maka dalam pikiran saya adalah bukankah seharusnya pemerintah Papua itu punya grand design tentang bagaimana peningkatan kualitas SDM di Papua, sehingga ketika orang pintar Papua dikirim ke sana dan kemari untuk belajar, maka kalau ingin kembali, maka dia harus kembali dengan peran tertentu. yaitu bukan investasi untuk dirinya pribadi, tetapi dia harus berinvestasi untuk masyarakatnya. Dan itu tidak bisa dikerjakan sendirian oleh Kak Neas atau tidak oleh LSM. Tapi pemerintah dengan LSM harus duduk bersama, kemudian menyusun blueprint untuk peningkatan SDM di Papua. Karena kalau tidak ada itu Kak Neas itu akan bekerja sendiri secara sporadis. Kak Neas bekerja keras dan bersusah payah meningkatkan kualitas, tetapi tidak signifikan hasilnya. Saya ingin Kak Neas berkomentar tentang itu. Artinya bahwa Kak Neas itu berinisiatif secara pribadi sungguh sangat Kak Neas pahlawan untuk bagi kami dan bagi Papua. Tetapi kemudian pergerakan itu harus punya strategi, pergerakan itu harus punya grand design. So, is there any grand design untuk peningkatan SDM di Papua dalam konteks pendidikan? Itu pertanyaan yang pertama. Pertanyaan yang kedua, Kak Neas. Kak Neas itu adalah pelaku dan saya pikir berkaitan dengan local wisdom, apapun. Tadi kalau yang saya catat di pertanyaan ini adalah apakah yang saya tulis di sini itu adalah tentang ecological wisdom. Kak Neas sambil mendidik, kemudian sebetulnya Kak Neas sangat punya peluang untuk mendokumentasikan semua wealth treasure yang berada di Papua tentang ekologi, tentang apapun, saya yakin banyak. Apakah LSM-nya Kak Neas atau siapapun LSM yang di sana turut serta mendokumentasikan kekayaan itu, kekayaan dalam kekayaan literasi itu atau apapun budaya itu karena itu yang akan diajarkan turun temurun dan itu adalah treasure not only for Papua tetapi untuk Indonesia. Dua pertanyaan itu saja. Maaf ya Kak Faya, pertanyaannya banyak. Nanti monggo ditranslatekan ke Prof. Kariya. Terima kasih Kak Neas.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Jani. So this question is going to given to Kaneas, but for Professor Kariya context, Bu Jani is asked about, is there any grand design for improving like human resources in education in Papua, and how was the NGOs documenting the cultural literacy in Papua for Kaneas community itself? So Kaneas, you may give your answers to.
Okay. Thank you, Eugenie, dosen. Salam kenal. Greeting from Papua. Answer to your question, the first one is, yes, we do have the blueprint, but then it's also come to the political will. It also comes to the bureaucracy of the government, of the systems. So because our NGO is working independently, not in the with collaborating with the political things. So that's really hard for us to know, getting into the policies to how the students who get the scholarships, they have to come back and contribute. Actually, we have approaching and we have blueprint for that. But then because our organization moving independently, we are not into the political party. So that's how it's really hard for us to do that. But there are also some organizations that also joining with the political parties, and they have been like sending students, but I don't know what they have been doing with that. Why the students, they didn't come back and contributing. And I think they also like at the LPDP have good blueprints, because we have like study, we have to come back and we have to sign up, and what that's we can do when we have, because most of Papuan, they have, when they're going out, they get scholarship from the government, local government, or from the national from the governments. But then after they got the scholarship, they did not return back, because there is no side there is no between the government and also the students. So that's the big issues also we are facing. But thank you for the your insight. And we are like, as a community also, it's we become now to solve, or to see to make sure that also some students and also some of my friends, that they stay in abroad, they can come back and contribute in how they have feel connected with they have since Papua is one of the provinces that also still development, so we really need support and contribute to from this. And the second one is about the local wisdom. And yes, in my experience, because in some, like, it's very far away from the city, there is no resources to teach. We send some volunteers from our like organizations, and they use like stone and river and landscape and environments. They use those tools and they teach they taught the students, and like singing and storytelling. That's the most more powerful way to teach, because they don't have resources to use like book and things, so we use those kind of things. And I feel that it's not just our organizations. There is some organizations also working on that, and some NGO, and we are collaborating with them. And now we are working on the local language, so to pursue, because our some local languages are now we are like losing and the city, but some communities they don't practice, so we are augmenting those language. And from the language, I think we will move to the song, and also some local wisdom that we have been documented, and also that would be, even though we will lose our local language, but there will be some documentation that we can see in the future for the next generation.
Okay, is that answering your question, Bu Jenny?
Yes, thank you so much, Kak Faya. Kak Neas, terus semangat. Indonesia berharap banyak dan berhutang budi luar biasa kepada Kak Neas.
Okay, thank you so much, Bu Jenny and Kaneas. And then we will move to our chat box question for Professor Kariya from Nasma Yeni from KGBN Pasal. Okay, what are the most significant challenges to the educational and curriculum changes that have been implemented? This include those from environment, society, parents, and other. Okay.
Well, I think the very important, I think, a part of the issues, I think, are raised by the person who raised the question, included in the reform. But problem is how school or teachers can manage, to provide that good content or good times for students, to learn anything about, for example, environmental issues, any social issues, inequality, for example, or, and then, or more recently, I think Japanese government tried to teach students more kind of knowledge of finances and how people invest in, in their own asset, increasing their asset, and then that sort of, a lot of, I think, things come in curriculum. And then also, I think, coming, I think, a package of reforms. So the problem is that all those goodwill, reforms, now they try to include every important matters, in school curriculum, I think make teachers too busy. And so that means of course, that, I call it a positivist approach. That, anything good should be in the pot. And then, but of course, the capacity of the pot is limited. That's sort of, teachers' working hours or school curriculum hours. So that I think anything, government thought good made problem. I think particularly work-life balance among teachers. So that, most recently, hiring processes of teachers become problematic because young people noticed, teaching is not a good job because it's too busy. And then not to, I think, be given good wages compared to the workload. So that means the government, of course, had the goodwill, to put everything important in the curriculum and education reforms, but it created problems. So that's the balance, how you can make the good balance, within a realistic capacity of teachers and schools, what should be included in curriculum, whatever they are good or bad. That is my answer to the question. Is that good enough?
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Kariya, for Bu Nasmayeni. Is that answering your question? Okay, you can type on the chat box. I hope that answering your question clearly, yeah, Bu Nasmayeni. Thank you so much, Professor Kariya. And then we are going to move to our last question for today's question and answer session for Bu Lisa Nazifah that raised your hand in this Zoom meeting. Please, Bu Lisa Nazifah.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes,
Hello,
good
my name
afternoon.
is Lisa. I am, thank you, Kak Fayana. I am a civil servant from Jakarta. I want to ask to Professor Kariya about his research. Thank you for the great presentation, but I want to ask about the way how do you see Japan? Because in Indonesia, I witnessed that elementary school has a changing curriculum, but here in Indonesia we change it based on, I think, accordance to the change of Ministry of Education. So how do you see in Japan by the changing of curriculum, not only the effect not only to the student but to the teacher also, because I think a teacher is the most effective one by the changing of curriculum. How will the teacher deliver it to the student? Because you also said about less time at school and more time outside school. How will the teacher adapt to this kind of different curriculum by the time the year pass? And I want to ask also to Kak Neas about the thing in Papua, because I think I spent almost all my life in Jakarta in urban areas. So I don't know how the situation, the vicinity of the Papua. I work mostly on adult learning. So there are a model of learning about 70, 20, and 10%. 70% for the experiential learning, 20% and for the social learning, and 10% in classical learning, Kania. So I want to ask you, is this the one that you implemented in Papua? Because you are talking about maybe daerahnya terpencil, so you don't have enough room to move easily, like not like in Jakarta. So most of the students spend their time with their friends or along in the environment near by them. So the 70% they live on the experiential learning and 20% on the social learning. I thought this model is only applied on adult learning, Kak Neas. So is this what you say about the type of education in Papua, by implementing the 70, 20, and 10%? That's all. Thank you, Kak Fayana.
Okay, thank you so much, Bu Lisa Nazifa, for the question. Yes, maybe first for Professor Kariya, you may answer
Okay.
the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, that's a very important question that relate to the teachers. Of course, that the government try to change that national curriculum. I mean, to nurture, foster, I think, individuality and creativity, and then the way of the teaching, I think, they try to change too, is sort of active learning, so that students, I think, are done each other and then discuss as a small group, and then also study by themselves, and then all those kind of things, of course, that need teachers training, right? And then, of course, the previous years, teachers didn't have such experience at all. So that means teachers faced very new pedagogy to encourage active learning among students. But as I mentioned earlier, teachers had a problem. They are too busy. And then how they squeeze the time to get training, very good training, to adapt new national curriculum, that became very clear problem, because the government didn't increase the number of teachers or making a classroom size, smaller. So that all same conditions, but they good intended reforms, I think, increased more demands on teachers. Of course, it looks good, but I think to implement those reforms more efficiently, you need more practical, I think, training among teachers. But teachers didn't get such trainings, and then those kind of processes, I think, are continued even today. That's why I just mentioned earlier that teaching job become less popular among young people because it's too hard work. And then, of course, that demands are too much. So that how it could, demanding work could be rewarded. That's something I think good intention reforms failed if the government, I think, disregard the realistic condition of your teaching capacity, both teachers and schools. That is my answer to your question. Lisa, is that good enough?
Thank you, Prof. Kariya, for your answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bu Lisa and Professor Kariya. Next to Kanias. Please go ahead, Kanias.
Baik, terima kasih. Thank you, Lisa, for your questions. Like 40, 30, and how we grow and learn. I've from the best of my experience, the students that also we empower them, they learn like most from the environment and from the social, because in the school itself we don't have the enough resources, even the book, and also now our curriculum is about online. We have to know download our materials from the online, and also after that we share to the children in the class. And one thing also that the teachers, that our volunteers, is they also need to train them how to use the computer and to download the materials from the online. So, and in the villages, we don't have the internet, we don't have the electricity. We face, but so mostly 70% the children, they learn from the environment, and 20% from the social, and 10% will be in the classroom. In the classroom, even the classroom, the activity is more like, the teachers, he taught just only the resources that they have. Like if he don't have the book to teach, and they use resources that what we have in the areas of the schools, and the government policies also sometimes not reach until the remote area of Papua. There is Papua, Indonesia is very huge, very big from the west to the east, and we have different language, tradition, and things. So I feel that the policies are also come from the communities, because they know what is the resources, the knowledge that we have in the locals. So that need to be in the curriculum, so the students, they can easy to learn, because we learn mostly in the visualize what we see, what we thought, what we hear. That's way more easy to the students. They can learn because they every day they live here, they live there, they thought, they see. So it's more helpful that way than in the national curriculum, that like in one platform and in one you have to access across Indonesia, and it's not local context. So that's I can share for Lisa. I hope I can answer your question.
Thank you, Kanias. Good luck, success for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kaneas, Bulisa, and Professor Kariya. Thank you so much for all the participants that has been asking questions. But unfortunately, we're at our final session for today. So I would like to ask each of our speakers for a brief closing statement. What thoughts you want to live with us today? Professor Kariya, would you like to go first for your briefly closing statement?
Yeah, thank you very much, for raising a very interesting, good questions. I wanted to share my knowledge, with the people who are maybe practitioners and also scholars, I used the case of Japan, but I think, of course, that I didn't mean to Japan should be the, model, but sometimes even Japan as the one successful economic growth country, growing country, failed in many ways in education policies. So that is my message. How whatever that government had good intention, checked reality. That is very important, I think, for us to equalize opportunities for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kariya. Okay, thank you. So now, Kaneas, the final word is yours. Go ahead.
For me, social mobility is not about only helping one children to move forward, but it's about creating pathway so that when one children rise, they can also open doors for many others to rise as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kariya and Kaneas, for your time. So, for everyone who watching, take your words and what you heard today. So, I hope you guys learned a lot for today's session and build something with it. So, because no one left behind in education, and we also have to take part to that. Okay, so last we're going to our final session, which our favorite session, which photo session. So for all of the participants, you may turn on your camera and then we will screenshot this panel session together. Okay, we will wait maybe for 1 minute for you guys to turn on your camera and give your give your best pose. Okay, maybe the committee ready for the screenshot?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, by my count in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Once again, Kara file. Okay.
Sure.
3, 2, 1. Okay, is it enough?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much,
Panel
everyone.
selanjutnya, Kak.
Oh, okay, the next slide. Okay, maybe another pose.
Iya.
Okay. Yes, and 3, 2, 1. Okay, is it enough?
Iya.
Or another
Panel
slide?
3.
Okay, the third panel. Okay, thank you. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, another panel or slide.
Panel terakhir.
Okay, last slide. In 3, 2, 1. Okay,
Sudah, Kak.
done. Okay, thank you so much for all of the participants and Professor Kariya for Kaneas and on behalf of ICEF 2026 and the Indonesian Institute for Education Reform. Thank you so much for your participation, for all of the speakers, for all of our participant committee, for your generosity and your wisdom and your time for today. So after this, I will hand over to Rafael for the workshop session after this, based on our conversation and discussion for today's session. And I'm Fayana as moderator. Thank you so much for your time. I give it back to Kak Rafael. Thank you so much, Professor Kariya and Kaneas.